What's up guys, Matt from footballboots.co.uk, and as you all know, Adidas have just released their brand new turbocharged pack, which includes the ACE17.1 Primeknit, which is one of the most forward-thinking and revolutionary boots on the market of today. But let's not forget, back in the early 2000s, Adidas were once again smashing the boot market with their Predator range, and we've got the Predator Pulse, which is one of my own personal favourite boots of all time. So what we're going to do is lace up both pairs, see which one comes out on top, new school or old school. Let's find out. So the old school Predator boots were all about adding whip to the ball. So what we're going to do is hit some free kicks into that top left corner to see if we can replicate the great David Beckham. So guys, the Predator boots were all about that crazy big fold over tongue. So before we start playing, what we're going to do is make them look just like Beckham did. One thing is that the laces are so long. We can see here, you don't get laces this long anymore. This is madness. So you pull them tight, wrap them around the back four studs. That's the little trick. Back four studs, tie them up normally, and then what you need to do is pull that tongue all the way to the front studs, tuck those laces in between, and there you have it, just like Beckham. So how do these old school Predator boots actually feel on feet? Now, you don't get leather like this anymore. It is so soft and it's so plush and premium. These were how football boots used to be made in the 90s and 2000s. It was all about being luxurious. Something that you maybe don't get from more modern day football boots with those synthetic uppers. Another big plus is that they're pretty wide fitting as well. So players with wide feet, these Predator Pulses would have been an absolute dream for you. So we've spoken about how David Beckham had his whip-free kicks on lockdown with his Predator Pulses, but let's not forget that Gerrard also wore these boots, and he probably had the best half volley and volley I have ever seen. So we've got ourselves a rebounder, so let's see if we can replicate some of Gerrard's best goals. So this is so interesting. On my left foot, I've got the leather Predator Pulse, and on my right, I've got the knitted Primeknit. Now, don't get me wrong, the Primeknits do feel like a sock, much more like a sock compared to the Predator Pulses, but in terms of feeling luxurious, premium and plush, the Predator Pulses absolutely nail that department. For me, it has to be the Predator Pulse. Guys, just take a look at that side profile. It doesn't get much better looking than that from the Predator Pulse. They look absolutely gorgeous with that fold over tongue and those wavy three stripes on the side of the boot. From a side angle, they are absolutely stunning. So we can talk about performance all day, every day of football boots, but let's not forget one of the most important features of any football boot is how comfortable they are. And these old school Preds with that high level quality leather and also the wide fit, these are so comfortable, there's no doubt about it. I feel like I could play 180 minutes in these boots with no problem at all. These were brand new out of the box. I've got no heel blisters, nothing like that. There's no pressure points. These are an absolute dream. Adidas, if you're watching, bring back the OG Predators. I would buy about 10 pairs, I can promise you that. So get them back on the market, please. So we've had Bex's whip-free kicks, Stevie G's volleys, but what about Super Frankie Lampard's long distance strikes? We've got the rebounder again, so let's try some long distance pings into the top bins. So the ACE Primeknit is known to have one of the softest synthetic uppers on the market with that Primeknit construction, but it just doesn't compare to that OG Pred with the K-leather upper. It is so soft and premium, there is just no comparison whatsoever. Whilst the Primeknit might be soft for modern day football, nothing compares to that original Pred leather. So one fact which is so obvious when wearing one boot on either foot is that the weight is incredibly different. The Predator Pulses are so heavy, they feel like 400 grams on feet, When I was just wearing the Predator Pulses, I couldn't really tell that they were heavy, but now I've got the Primeknit on my other foot, it is completely different kettle of fish. The Primeknits feel so much more lightweight, which is definitely a good thing. So that's maybe one negative about those old school retro boots, is that the weight is so much more. So when these Predator Pulses were released back in 2004, their absolute main player at the time was Zidane, my favourite player of all time, no doubt. Now, one technique that he had on lockdown was whipping it into the left-hand side of the post with his right foot, so that's what we're going to do now. Zizou! So when we're talking about what makes a good sole plate, you can pretty much break it down into two factors. You want it to be stiff on the rear and also in the midfoot, which the sprint frame sole plate offers, but then become more flexible. Now the Primeknit isn't the most flexible at the toe box region. Now bringing in the Predator Pulse, again it's very stiff in the rear and also in the midfoot, but it is much more flexible in that toe box portion, which means in terms of being comfortable and also offer nice playability, the Predator Pulse wins it. So I've still got the Predator Pulses on my feet, but let's have a little look at the timeline of Adidas to see where they began and where they are now. Well, these were the first ever pair of Predator football boots, and as we can see, it's all about those mega aggressive rubber fins on that forefoot. Now, a couple models later, we had arguably the best Mania, and if not the best Mania, the greatest football boot of all time, the Predator Manias. What an absolute dream, gorgeous pair of boots these were. Maybe Adidas can release another colourway of these, just like on the remakes we've got here. If they can make the remake of the champagne colourway, they would be unbelievable. And then we had the LZs, which weren't a Predator to me. They were just too synthetic, not much of a fan of them. Then we obviously had the remakes, as we said. And today, this is what we have, the Adidas ACE17 Primeknit, which is a knitted material, no longer leather, and also it's got a collar, so a million miles away from those OG Preds. So we've named some unreal footballers so far, but let's add another one to that list, maybe the coolest guy involved in football, Xabi Alonso, who was renowned for scoring those long distance goals from the halfway line. So let's try and replicate Xabi. I'll take it, I'll take it. So taking a closer look at those rubber elements which the Predator were made famous for, and trust me, they are so grippy, it's unbelievable. They're also slightly prominent as well, coming out of that K-leather upper, and what they were designed to do was add a bit more precision and power to your crossing, shooting and passing, and when I was wearing them today, that's exactly what I felt. So if we break it down to say my favourite three things about the old school Predator boots, the number one has to be that massive fold over tongue with the elastication to go around the foot to keep it nice and long, just like David Beckham. I think it looks so sick. You cannot disagree that a big red fold over tongue doesn't look sexy. It really does. Now the second thing that I like are those rubber elements on that forefoot, and all they're supposed to do is add a nice bit of curve, power and precision to any kind of ball playing at all, if it's a free kick, a corner, a long pass. That's exactly what they offer, and it's so rubbery to feel, and you can see those grooves themselves almost get a little bit of rubber crumb in between because they are quite deep. Now the final thing I love so much about the old school Preds is that external heel counter. Now I like them on any football boot, but the Predators back in the day probably had the best ones of all time. I think they just again look so cool. So guys, you now have the power to decide who wins the best Predator boot of all time from the ones we've got on the screen. The OG Predator, the OG Predator Mania, the OG Predator Pulse, the Predator LZ2, or the remake Predator Mania released in 2004. Vote in the poll card now for your favourite. If it were me, I'd go for the OG Predator Pulse. That colourway is sick. So guys, there it is, the OG Predator Pulses up against the brand new turbocharged Primeknits. But which boots came out on top for me? Well, it had to be the OG Pred Pulses. The fit and feel was so traditional and so premium, and I love those rubber fins with that fold over tongue. I feel like I could whip it past any wall into that top corner. So there it is, that's my favourite pick, but you guys get to choose as well. Vote in the poll card now for your favourite between the two. But Primeknit, see you later, because I'm going to put this right foot on and whip some more into that top bin. See you next time guys, cheers.